Yo, and we live.
Awesome. So people can see my screen and everything?
Oh, not yet. I'm using the discussions view. We can go right
Okay,
to your
yeah,
screen.
no, all good. Yeah, cool. Well, hey, to the people out there watching, welcome to another rendition of the demo. We want the demos to be a little bit earlier. I think, Louis, last time we did it, we got really positive feedback. There was one time where we had to do it super early, and we actually got really good feedback. People are like, "Oh man, now it's in a time where I can actually watch it and stuff." And we're like, "Yeah, that's awesome." So, we're kind of testing out the waters. If you guys think that, you know, if it's too early, let us know. If it's just right, that's perfect. The Goldilocks stream. So, but yeah, anyways, today we have some fun stuff to demo. And Louis, how you doing?
You're very well, man. Just woke up about an hour ago, 2 hours ago. Yeah,
Nice.
been working on. I mean, actually, I went yesterday. I was refactoring the messaging API a little bit. So to those who don't know, we've been working on a messaging API that actually abstracting the whole messaging, like in Chrome extension, right? There is this there you have to use an API to communicate between your messaging, your background service worker, and your content script, and also your pops up, right? So how do you send data between these components? Uh, like the first way that we have done it is to have a storage package. Right? The storage package abstract all of that into like a hook and a storage API that it basically remove all of the kind of JSON parsing and normalization of data for you. So to ensure that all of your data is serialized when you put inside storage. But the storage module, the storage API is not really it's not good for real time communication, right? It's good for like kind of slow and it's slow but it's persistent. So that's its good side, but it's not for like directly communication. So with the new messaging API, our hope is to actually abstract it away into the file system so that you have better code organization and much easier control flow over your messaging. Um, so one thing that I have to refactor yesterday or was trying to do was um, moving from the global messaging API to the port API. Yeah,
Right.
and while doing so, I realized maybe I should separate these two API out because the messaging API, so the one-time messaging API actually still good for one-time message to like just you want to pass one data and you want to return something. That's actually very good for an async kind of connection. So you want to send something async and you want to return. You don't want to worry about subsequent kind of connection. And that's still good. It's a good use case for that. The port messaging is more for two-way communication. It's very similar to socket connection. And for that, I think we will have to dedicate a separate API for that. Dedicate another API for that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you guys don't know about this messaging feature, maybe you haven't tuned in on the previous live streams or you're not up to speed on our Discord or GitHub, the easiest way to learn more about it is to actually look at this pull request here. This pull request talks about like this messaging feature, and it doesn't just talk about it. You can actually look at the code, and that's kind of at the core of everything that we do. Um, we want to kind of show, not tell. I think, Louis, you took a creative writing class once in college, and that was one of the things we talked about, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you can look at the code here. You can see how it works, and um, there is some like kind of comments here that you added about like ways to improve it, and then you can actually look at the different commits and how it is panning out. And if you have any feedback or thoughts on this, comment directly on the PR, right? Like if you notice that there's some flaw or you notice something that's actually great and you want more of it, just comment on here. We're open source. Feel free to add your contribution as well. But this is something a lot of people talked about that they needed. So that's why we're spending a lot of time really thinking through it, really making sure that it's good and getting it out the door as soon as possible. So
Yeah.
yeah, super, super awesome. Really excited about this one. And I guess that's kind of like thing we're doing in the back, like not in the background, it's very much in the foreground, but there's other stuff that actually happen as well, which are more bug fixes that we can talk about as well, right?
Yep. By the way, you might want to maybe make your screen a bit enlarge it, a bit too small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright then.
Cool. So first things first, new release.
Yep.
Um, now this one's an interesting one, Lewis. It actually bit us twice. Right?
Yeah, it did it twice. So to elaborate more on this one, so Stefan actually fixed the same issues. See the line ending, uh, by basically he just have to resave it right in his Mac machine, and publish it from Mac machine. The problem actually is with on my end I'm using a Windows setup, and so on Windows, when I clone the repo or when I actually save the file, Windows, or at least my VS Code setup, was made to just use the Windows default, and it reconverted back the some of these binaries file with the new line ending. And so this fix really is just me kind of uh, reinstalling Git. Actually, I have to reinstall Git and tell it just, hey, just use Unix line ending. I don't really care too much about Windows line ending anymore. And
Oh wow.
yeah, and also making sure that VS Code save everything and keep them as is instead of like converting. Yeah,
Is it that like Git was compiled to do this, so you have another
yeah.
version of Git that was
So
compiled to...
so Git on Windows, when you install Git on Windows, right? Git Bash, the Git Bash program, it gives you three options. You can actually keep your line ending as is and convert it when Git check it in. You can align them all to Unix, or you can like check it in and keep it as it is. So basically there's several options how you want your line ending to be done by Git. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so you chose the Unix line endings version.
Yeah, precisely.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, if you guys were facing any issues with that, that's cleared up, and unless we hire a new person, or Lewis gets a or I get a new Windows laptop, and we forget to do that, maybe this will come back again, but hopefully not.
Yeah.
We know now, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you think this is harmless until you get into shebangs and other stuff.
Yeah, interesting, right?
I never thought about it before. Like, have you ever considered that? Like, never on thought, never
No.
in my mind.
Well, the last time that I played around with these kind of line ending stuff was back in I was doing language parsing for like NLP model for robotic, and yeah, apparently the data set there's a lot of this kind of like, so they call it BOM, right? So bomb line ending and big Indian landing, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you have to actually accounting for them when you parse the token. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's the last time that I had to do that.
Interesting. Yeah, I was looking at like well, there's this blog post about like everything the developer needs to know about Unicode or
Mhm.
UTF. I don't
Yeah.
remember. So I read that years ago, and then recently I saw on the Chromium source code, because when you load an extension, it'll go through the content script and make sure that all of the source code that you're loading is UTF-8, and if it's not, then it actually throws an error. And I was looking at how they did that, and it's a bunch of complicated stuff, lots of bit shifts and so on. So I was like, nope, and I got out of there real quick. So all this stuff is a little bit of magic to me, and I don't want to learn about it.
Mhm.
So yeah, but that's cool. Because I saw the reason why I bring it up is because I think I saw like BOM in the source code Chromium, so they must be doing some similar stuff as well.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so we did this one, got that cleared up, and the other one that was a really big one is content script reloading. So the big thing that was happening here was when developers wanted to reload their content scripts, it works fine most of the time. when you're, let's say, using a simple, let's say, content.ts, and you have a content script that you're just injecting like TypeScript into your extension, you don't really do much more than that, it will reload. But then what we ended up seeing was when you use content script UI, this live reloading doesn't work at all. The way you would have to reload is first you save your file, you make a change, then you go into the Chrome extensions settings page, you manually click reload extension, you go back to your tab where you expect the content script to live in, you refresh the page, and then you see the change. Every single time you make a change, you have to go through this process, which is quite laborious and that doesn't feel magical. And one of the things when we started Plasma, we want everything to feel magical, right? So huge issue. And we took a look what was going on, and there were, I would say there was two big issues happening.
Mm-hmm.
The first is when Parcel sends the contents, so every content script in dev gets injected with Plasma's runtime, and this is, in a nutshell, just a WebSocket instance. And the WebSocket instance in your content script that gets injected listens to a WebSocket server that Parcel exposes on your computer. So that way, when Parcel figures out that there's a new change, it'll actually send a message to your content script where this runtime lives and tell the content script, hey, these are the changes that have occurred. And then it's up to the content script runtime to figure out, okay, I actually need to reload, or no, I don't. I'm just going to ignore these. So that's kind of how the flow works. And what was happening was, so the first problem, when Parcel sends a message to our content script runtime, our content script runtime was checking whether every single bundle that was changed was a dependency of the content script. But that didn't always have to be the case for a reload to be required. So that's why reloads were failing on .tsx files and so on, because not every module was a dependency, not every bundle was a dependency. So we ended up actually changing that to not every, but at least one. At least one module is a dependency, then we completely reload. And that fixed that issue. But then we were seeing something that was even weirder. So when Parcel sends that message telling your content script, hey, you need to reload, potentially Plasmo hasn't built the new extension in time. So there was a race condition. And that was really, really, really interesting. We kept noticing that, like, yeah, this is supposed to reload, but it's not actually reloading, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
Because it would actually refresh the page and everything, but it wouldn't load the new code in.
Yeah.
And that's when we found that there was this race condition.
I think that
and now we have it.
one of the things you tried was, right, one thing that Stefan tried was actually save twice. If you save twice, it would actually work.
Yeah, it would, yeah. So when that happened, we were like, wait, if we had to save twice, that mean, and then, after like thinking through it a little bit, we're like, yeah, it's probably race condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just taking the previous code and that's what it's doing. So we built this thing, which is like relatively straightforward. Basically, the content script runtime doesn't refresh until it both gets a message from, so now it listens to two WebSockets. It listens to one from Parcel, and then once it hears from Parcel that it needs to reload, it'll check saying like, okay, Parcel told me to reload, but I'm not going to reload yet. I'm actually going to wait for Plasmo to also send me a message saying, hey, we built your build directory, go ahead and reload. And only if those two things happen will your content script reload. And that's kind of the way we fix this race condition. So now you have to wait for both to give you the message. But yeah, there was a lot of experimentation in between that I didn't mention. Like, for some reason, we also thought that like your content script sends a message to your background service worker telling it to reload the extension, and then it refreshes the page. And one of the things that we were noticing was potentially there was a race condition there as well. But after fixing this bug, where we had these two things go side by side, that race condition went away. So, but yeah, it was quite the debugging experience. I think we spent about 5 or 6 hours digging through this together and figuring out what happened. And if you want to read more about it, so like I kind of explained that briefly, but if you wanted to read more about it, you can check out our changelog, and we actually go in detail here, talking about what we did, what happened, and even linking some GitHub issues on Parcel's side or rather Plasma's side, to kind of like explain more. So that's one thing that's kind of interesting. Yeah, so those two things are the big ones for this week.
Yep.
And by the way, to those folks that don't know what I'm looking at, so this is actually publicly available. If you go to plasmo.com/p/changelog, so that's plasmo.com/p/changelog, you can actually get access to this changelogs website. And here you can see all of the changelogs. So we do these every week. Right before the demo, we put them out. And these are also saved as YouTube videos, these sort of live streams. So in this case, from last Thursday, when we did the demo, you can actually look at the YouTube video where we talk about what's happening in the changelog. And then, some people, they like the live format, some people like the recorded format, and others, they like reading. So we have options for everyone. And here you can see all the different stuff we were up to last week, and Loom videos and so on. This week, it was more of a framework kind of week. So we don't really have any videos or screenshots or anything, but we dug deep into talking about the different stuff we've been up to. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. I think should we just wrap it up early?
Yeah,
Yeah, this should be a short and sweet one, so I think that should be.
Yeah, sounds good.
Good to go.
Next week, just to give people a sneak peek, there was, so our blog provider, we were one of their first users, so we were on a free plan, and it was pretty okay. Like the text editor wasn't super great, but it's okay. They're early stage startup, and they're getting better all the time. But now we found out that actually, when I wanted to create a new blog post, actually literally about what you were talking about, which is crazy coincidence, Louis. You were talking about how storage is slow and messaging is much faster.
Yeah.
So I wrote an entire blog post about this. I wanted to publish it, and then I got hit with an error message saying that that feature is not supported anymore in your plan upgrade to have it. So next week we'll be showcasing an entirely new blog. So that's going to be hosted on our servers and everything, and we don't have to be dependent on them anymore. You guys might notice that some of our blogs have little UI discrepancies and so on. Those actually aren't on our side; they're on the blog provider side. So, and then when we try to reach out to tell them like, hey, this is broken on your UI, they actually told us that we're not on a tier that can provide support, which is pretty funny. But yeah, now we'll have our own blog, and everything's going to be amazing. And likely, this stuff is also going to be on our own website as well, so that should be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of a sneak peek of what's happening next week. And hopefully, this messaging stuff is also gonna be fleshed out, and it's already fleshed out, but like even more by next week. So stay tuned for next week. It's going to be really, really awesome.
Yes, sir. All right, good to go.
Cool. With that, see you guys next week. Take care.
Adios.